2003 and 2004, I think, I discovered a pottery studio at the Foster City Recreation Center. And I hadn't done it for about 20, 30 years, so I thought, okay, let's try it again. I'd been laid off about that time, partly because I was no longer able to work. I was disabled due to brain injury. And I basically relearned everything in Foster City. Then I went over to Randall Reed's studio in Half Moon Bay. And if any of you have, one of our members, Pat Daly, she's also using his studio. I was there for, I think, a couple of years until the economy collapsed, and then I had to move out. So we spent 2009 renovating this place, this room, which was a sunroom, had a glass ceiling, and it got to be about 100 degrees in here every day. It was a kiln.
Looks like a kiln.
And then Brenda let me basically move my studio here, and that was the 2009. Then 2010 I started trying to get back into production, and this 2011 and 12 is just trying to get the hang of it. Back there I keep all the finished ware that I'm taking to shows. This is where I live most of the time, and in the summer, of course, it's nice and warm, as you can tell, and in the winter, I need the heat dish to keep from freezing. I use a lot of bats. I can't afford to go out and buy them, so I make them. This is masonite, quarter-inch masonite. You can buy the 2-foot by 4-foot sheets, and I just cut it up into 12-inch squares and then cut the corners to make it a little more reasonable. I built just about everything. The wheel I got at, I think, at Foster City from their, at the rec center. It's an old Lockerbie that was sitting outside for years. It's perfect. I've learned on it. A lot.
Someone wants to give me one, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, probably a couple £100.
Yes.
How did you move it? With help. No, it's actually with 2 people you can move it. It's not that bad. So we were able to carry it down the steps, and then just trying to get to the door was a challenge because it turns sideways, and then very carefully bring it in and not fall.
This is just kick wheel, no motorized at all?
There's no motor. One of the 3 reasons I have it: 1, I can get it real cheap. 2, it doesn't use electricity. Up here, the electricity in the fall and the winter, usually during a football game, dies. So I don't care if I'm using this. The worst I can do is freeze.
Yeah.
And the 3rd reason, of course, is it gives me exercise and keeps me from freezing. So
That's great.
they're very, very good. Because I use bats very heavily, partly because the metal wheel is murder on the hands. In order to get the stuff dry, I built a bunch of these things, the bat trees. I can just put it up. I was going to make it 6 feet tall, Brenda wouldn't let me. It's 4 feet tall. I just sit it up here, and I can just stick bats on there. I recommend if you don't have a lot of space to
That's a great idea.
put stuff. I was using the plywood boards to put newly thrown pieces on. Then I realized that wallboard probably did just as good a job and allowed the bottoms to dry a little more evenly. And then I just propped it up on the 1x2s.
I like your that thing changing and then red and porcelain
Yeah.
and white, so you don't have to clean it all the time.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
only problem is I made it a little bit too tall. I can use it,
That's
but
true. For me,
if
that's
you're not tall enough, it can be probably a challenge.
So those just slide out?
Yeah. They also weigh a ton.
How do you support it? Do you wedging or do you change places? Do you move them in and out, or do you just pull it out and start wedging?
Oh no, I put them on the one on top that I'm going to be using. I was throwing Black Mountain and Cinnamon until I get done with that. I just leave this one up on top. This is I use piano wire. Got it at Orchard. It does pretty good.
That's a great way of protecting it too.
This was mainly so that if the cats got carried away, they wouldn't hurt themselves on it.
Oh.
Slice it
I was
out.
wondering why you have that thing.
Yeah, once they got accustomed to it, they just kind of ignored it, so not such a big deal. And then I just built all this, partly so I have a place to put all the junk, and partly so that I wouldn't get clay all over the room. It helps a little bit.
What is this?
Oh, these, when we go to shows and I need to have someplace to display bowls,
Yes.
so I tried making these, and we'll see how it works. I try to keep a log of what I'm doing so I know what I've made. But the thing that I find useful is keeping a diagram of how big they are and how much clay I use.
Oh.
And this is the throne size. The final size is going to always be 7/8 of this. So I don't have. It's very, very helpful. I find I have more stuff in here than I make, and then I also find that I have to constantly update it because I found that some of these I got the sizes wrong when I redid it, so I've had to revise it frequently to get the numbers right. I do have a set of diagrams for kiln loading that I never use. I found that just by using this, it helps a lot. And I keep it here so I know what it is that I'm doing. When I throw, right now I do mainly functional wear. So I might throw 1 or 2 dozen mugs, 1 or 2 dozen bowls, depending on mugs. I can usually put onto the wall board. Bowls, teapots, things like that, I leave on the bat and put on the tree. This is my pop lifter. For some reason, I like using this to pick up mugs and bottles, whatever. It's very, very simple. And I did find, I've never tried doing it any other way. I've always just kept my my cutoff wire right here hanging. I'm starting to try to throw bowls and plates, and I needed something to a splash guard, so I got this kitty litter box.
Homemade.
Cut it down. It's not perfect.
You should write that up for the tip column.
Yeah.
I think people would really enjoy that.
I've seen better tips than that.
Oh, that's a good one.
A farm supply place. You can get large feed pans and cut them and then put them in place. I haven't tried it yet because I got this. I finally did manage to get a Giffen grip so that I could do trimming a little more easily, especially for bowls. If you'd have to trim 1 or 2 dozen bowls at a time, it's essential. I do recycle all my clay, so I have buckets of sloppy clay. And this is my one of my drying beds. The other one is over there drying out. That one's for the white clay and porcelain. This one is for the red clay. When I'm doing trimming bowls, real broad flat bowls like that, or plates, this is what I use to support the center.
Oh,
Just basically stack them inside the bowl and then put a bat on top, turn it over. I don't have to worry about the bottom of the bowl or the center of the bowl.
That's a good idea.
It's cheap and I can easily do it with whatever size I have. These are kind of nice, they're colorful, but you can kind of fine-tune the height of the. This is my first really big piece, and I just trimmed it. Out here, during the spring and summer, it gets warm. It's also dry. Everything dries out quickly, sometimes too quickly. So I don't have to worry too much about damp wear going in the kiln, unless I'm in a hurry. Then I have to take it out and do a 4-hour dry down before I actually do the disc fire. I just got those at IKEA and I figured it works. It does the job. We've got a lot of stuff at IKEA, and if you notice, I haven't exactly cleaned this all up, but this one's very helpful. I got it at the Goodwill store. It's cheap and it's simple. And if I have problems with it, I'm not worried about it. And I did finally, Brenda allowed me to buy one of these from Bison Studios. It's a tungsten trimming tool. This particular shape is the one I got because with these tools you don't sharpen them. You can't.
yeah.
You have to have him send them back to him and let him sharpen them. And they last apparently for a heck of a long time. But since these trimming tools go dull, I want one that I wouldn't have to worry about. The other ones, these I can sharpen. This is easy. It's a nice flat side. So I figured, heck. Oh, these are tools I use just for getting the shape. I made them from, the banding wire. This one's for, has little ribs or ridges in it for bottles. So after I've gotten done with all that, I go this way just because it's easier.
All the creatures can come and they'll eat them all up.
This is basically where I work. I just bring one of the table out here and do the glazing out the wax up there. This is going to be, I hope, a light shade. It's Coleman porcelain, and I built this stuff here just to store bisqueware before glazing. It has the door so that cats and rats and raccoons and everything else doesn't knock stuff off. I've had problems with over here. I built this so that they wouldn't go running through. So this helps. Plus, I've discovered that if I have a few hundred bowls and mugs and stuff that are all finished, you have to pack them somehow, and that's a real pain. So if I just leave them bisque, I don't have to worry about that. These here, just so that just as a reality check about how tall are these really, how many can I actually get in that little kiln. The main reason I built these for the glaze is so that I don't kill things that are sitting underneath the buckets. We have newts and everything else crawling around up here, and if I drag a bucket, it's bad news for me. I don't like doing that. So this was basically 4 seconds. We go to the second show, and all the stuff that either didn't work out or that nobody buys. This thing was here when we bought the house. Look over here. You'll see that I have all the display stands for when we go to shows. I do all the glazing and all the glaze mixing out here so that if I spill anything, I don't have to worry about it.
That's nice. That's nice.
In the winter, of course, when it rains, I have to put a tarp over that door roof. And during the fall, when this thing starts dropping leaves all over, I often do too. The thing about this area is, if it can grow, typically, especially if it's native, it will. And this one has spent the last 2 years trying to take over the yard. 2 years ago, it was a sapling.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's the parent tree, I think, is the one over in the middle of the yard that fell over. We got this just for the kiln. The most expensive part of this was the pad, because we had a contract to build it for us. We found him on Angie's list. He's very, very good.
What's the Angie's?
It is only used for the kiln. It doesn't go to the house. Basically, for 1-inch pipe that sinks down into the ground. And I got the fire permit and everything for this. This is the easy part. That stupid retaining wall back there was a pain. It was there from 15 years ago, and there was no permit for it, and the people of the county were a little bit leery about having that thing there, and it took a while to get some help to resolve it. We got a geophysicist to talk to them and say, there's nothing below it that's going to be affected. If it collapses, there's no houses down here. And they finally said, oh, okay. This hood is kind of helpful because I can lower it after a firing, especially if it's raining, to protect the kiln. I can put 4 masonite sheets around it. I actually have 2 pyrometers in it, just so I know what the heck it's doing.
It's sensitive to different temperature, huh? Upper and lower.
The small kilns, it's a 28 by 31 inch. And even the tiniest change to the propane pressure has an incredible change on what's happening in the kiln. I have flame spreaders over 2 of the jets, just so that the flame is diverted on 2 jets, so that it heats a little more evenly. But the position of the flame spreaders is also critical, and any tiny change there changes the behavior of the kiln. It's like firing a 16 cubic foot kiln is trivial compared to firing this stupid thing.
Yeah, not as much room for error.
No, every tiny. I have the propane pressure at the main tank set down as low as I can get it, just so that I can. So it's not so sensitive over on this end. And of course, I was keeping all the posts and shelves in the storage shed, but it was carrying hundreds of pounds of stuff out here every time. It's a pain. So I said, okay, leave it all out here. If it gets damp, no big deal. But I do recommend if you get a gas kiln, get something a little bigger.
Is it because the propane is more susceptible to the pressure fluctuations as opposed to natural gas?
I don't know.
Propane has a higher heat content than natural gas.
Yeah, it does. I haven't, the only other kiln I fired is an Olsen 16. And that one, well, using propane also, was a lot more forgiving. With this one, I get, I fire for oxidation, I get reduction in half the kiln, and oxidation on the other half. So it's a challenge.